very important things. Very, very good. Very good. And one more. I'll let one more person share. What is your favorite thing about training at Middleburg Martial Arts? Where is it? Aubrey has her hand up. What's your favorite thing, Aubrey?
Okay, go ahead.
Staff.
Doing staff. Yeah, the staff's pretty fun. Good. Okay. So I think that's it as far as announcements and those kinds of things go. Our guest speaker today, let me see if he's on here because I don't think he is. Oh, yes, he is. He's logging on right now. Okay. Most of you guys remember Mr. Anthony. Who remembers Mr. Anthony? Raise your hand. Yeah, Mr. Anthony Clark is on here with us. So I'm going to let him talk to you guys. You know, our theme of the month last month was leadership. This month is healthy habits. So I'll see if he wants to share any of that kind of stuff with you. And then I'm just excited to see what he's been up to recently. I think he recently got married. Is that right, Anthony? Yeah, well, congratulations. Congratulations. So we'll just kind of check in with him and let him talk to you guys a little bit about his history and training and kind of what martial arts has done for him. So thank you, Mr. Anthony, so much for coming on here. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. How have you been?
I've been doing really well.
Good. Congratulations to you and Haley. That's super exciting. So what have you been up to?
So back in early March, I actually graduated my MOS school. So I hit the Marine Corps fleet just at the beginning of March, and I've been fully learning my job in the real world, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome. And what do you do in the Marine Corps?
So I'm what's called a CBRN specialist. It's chemical, biological, radiological, oh, that was a mess, and nuclear warfare defense specialist.
Wow.
So anything that deals with chemical attacks, I help protect fellow Marines. I help train them to make sure they're able to protect themselves and the fellow Marines around them. And on the more non-combative side, I like real world situation, the pandemic that's going on right now with COVID. I run quarantine. I actually just got off duty last night, 8 o'clock this morning. I just got off of it. We deal with the people that are suspected to have COVID and the people that do have COVID to the best of our abilities.
That's tough. Well, we are so proud of you. I know every one of us who has ever taught you is so proud of you. And you are such a good example of somebody who worked really, really hard. And because of that, you grew so much in your training. Like and I'm going to have you talk about that a little bit if you don't mind. But I know when I first met you, when you were this little Anthony and you first started, I'll let you kind of explain who you were at that time versus who you are now. But it's such an amazing improvement. And you have grown to be such a strong role model for all of the guys that are on here now and for all of the students that were your students when you were here. And so thank you again for coming on here. And we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and ask you a couple of questions. The first thing, now, Mr. Anthony, just so you guys know, he was a 2nd degree black belt with us. He was an instructor at Middleburg Martial Arts for a while and before he joined the military. And he was in our leadership program as well. And he was an awesome role model. He was an awesome role model for all of the students when he was here. Okay, so Mr. Anthony, how would you say that the black belt leadership training at Middleburg Martial Arts helped you while you were in school?
It allowed me to focus, and all in all, the big thing I think I took from it was I wanted to set the example for the students that I was teaching. So I made it to where I didn't allow myself to fall into a rut or anything. It made me focus on schoolwork and try and present myself well to the students that I was teaching.
Yeah, that's huge. And we talk about our martial arts family a lot and things like that. And there's this huge support system that comes with that. And part of that, of course, you have your instructors who motivate you and
What?
guide you, and you have other students, the senior belts, who inspire you and that kind of thing. You have your peers. You know, a lot of the guest speakers we've had so far have talked about the friends that they made through training. And I know like you and Mr. Logan are still good friends, and those relationships and those friends that you surround yourself with make such a big difference in who you become and helping you to be successful. But beyond that, when you start getting up in the ranks, you now have students looking up to you, like Mr. Anthony just said. And so knowing that you are a role model and that you are leading and inspiring and motivating these kids really does help you, you know, rise to the occasion and set the example and make every decision you make with integrity and with that leadership in mind. And that is a really, really helpful amount of pressure that you have in that.
It is.
Okay, Mr. Anthony, how would you say that it helped you when you were out of school? So now that you're in your career and in the working world, how has that helped you since school?
So the biggest thing that I can say over like majorly the past year, something that was drilled into us as we went up through the belts and going through our tests for black belt and everything, perseverance, moving forward, not stopping, no matter what hit you. And it wasn't as much when I was training as I could say to what it was, because I actually went through a longer training cycle than what I'm supposed to, because I was injured. So I was on the training depot for longer than I was supposed to be. And that really put a damper on me because I was not able to talk to family regularly. Like I was only able to write them letters, and that was very limited. And then even after that, my MOS school, which was supposed to be only 3 months long, ended up being 6 to 7 just because bad timing. My class didn't pick up and stuff like that. And it felt like I hit a huge roadblock. And then automatically right after that, another huge roadblock and another one and another one. And finally, a year plus down the road, I am past all that. And I'm so happy right now. Like with my wife, I have my career going. It's like, it's just because I had the attitude of I'm going to get through this. I'm not quitting. I was literally not giving myself the option to.
Good. And I'm really glad that you just shared that story, because there are a lot of people right now that, you know, I mean, we always talk about you have to reevaluate, readjust your goals. There's a lot of our students that are on this call right now that did not get to test this time. They didn't get to belt test. As you know, as I know, as anyone who's a black belt knows, it happens, or sometimes you're not ready to test, or something happens that gets in the way of you belt testing. And for a lot of guys, I mentioned this at the very beginning, they did work really, really hard through virtual training and did belt test. But there are a lot of people who didn't. And just like every time, there are people who don't get a test. And the people who get to black belt are the ones that learn the perseverance, that learn no matter what happens, I'm going to work harder and I'm going to make sure I'm ready to test next time. And so I love that all of our students have shown that perseverance. And just like you just said, like learning that now when it's, you know, a little belt test towards your black belt versus when it's your career and it's your relationships and it's these major things that are going to impact the rest of your life. So if you can learn that now, by the time that does happen to you in your career, because everybody as an adult has roadblocks, whether they're in their career, in their relationships, in achieving any goals or any kind of success, you're going to have roadblocks, you're going to have failures. And it's how you handle that, the way that you look at it, the way you learn from it, and the way that you keep going and pick yourself up afterwards, that makes you successful and makes you happy. So good.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's how, you know, one other big thing with the military and going through basic training, going through schooling, any of that kind of stuff is very hard mentally. And you kind of mentioned that not being able to talk to your family and things like that can be very hard. There are a lot of people right now with COVID that are not seeing their friends, not getting to go to school and things like that. And that's hard emotionally. But can you tell me a little bit about how martial arts has helped you with that? Because we've been talking about talking to yourself in a positive way and different things like that. So can you tell me how martial arts has helped you maybe with your like kind of mental health, with being able to stay positive and persevering even and all of those kinds of things.
Yes, so I know Master Lappin always did like the goal meetings and stuff, and it got to the point that I was there so long that some of the meetings started to repeat for me. So it was really drilled in our head to have a positive attitude, and everything that we were taught out of those types of meetings and stuff. I may not, as a younger kid, have taken everything from every single one of those meetings, but it was those big things out of those meetings that I was able to take and I still apply to this day. Um, Trying not to like talk about everything in a negative manner. You do that and it builds up and you keep constantly thinking about things in a negative state. And when you think about everything in a negative state, that's just what you're thinking about everything, and it puts a damper on your whole entire outlook.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. Those gold meetings, you know, you've probably you sit through the same goal meeting on goal setting each year, and it's not until like the fourth or fifth year that you're like, okay, I know I could teach this, and that's where you should be. By the time that you graduate that program, you should be to a point where you're able to teach those gold meetings, and that's a good place to be because that's when you understand all of all of the topics that we're covering and all of the skills, and you're implementing them in your life, and you fully understand them to a point where you could teach them and you will use those everywhere you go. So yeah, I'm glad you referred to those gold meetings, and the way that you explain that is just like I explain it to these guys, especially the parents of young kids when we first talk about those gold meetings. All right. So, Mr. Anthony, what would you say is the most important thing that you benefited from your black belt leadership training?
Mm. I would say the most important thing, like not even just from black belt training, just going up through the ranks in general, my self-confidence. Because when I was younger, I was a lot shyer, and even as I grew up and got a little bit higher in the ranks, I gained more self-confidence, but it was always not outwardly until I really got up closer to black belt and like I started teaching and stuff like that. And I knew in myself what I was doing. And just in the simple fact of being able to teach something in front of kids that I don't know, with the parents watching, then you guys always in the offices and stuff when I messed up or some messing around. Um, just that alone allowed my self confidence to build in every other aspect of life. In school, like I used to be bullied when I was younger, and I never it never got bad to the point where I ever had to use my martial arts to defend myself. But at some point, one time or another, I just guess my self confidence finally reached that point to where people stopped messing with me, and I noticed it probably about the beginning of high school. Just that type of thing alone, the self confidence, I would say, is probably the biggest thing for me.
Mhm. And that's huge. And you do carry yourself now with so much confidence. And I would say that that's probably one of the biggest things that you did improve in from when you started to now. Your confidence skyrocketed at some point in there. Yeah, and I think it's a combination of that with the bullying aspect of the amount of confidence, the amount of assertiveness that you had with yourself and with other people that really does, it changes to a point. It's not just you learn the martial arts and you can, you know, physically defend yourself, but you carry yourself in a different way. You look at yourself in a different way. You talk to other people in a different way. That does stop that bullying, which is awesome to hear. Um, okay. Do you mind telling everybody how old were you when you started training?
I think nine,
That's
nine or
what okay. Will you tell everybody if you had to describe that person, because that's not you anymore, that's a totally different person. If you were to describe that 9 or 10-year-old, go ahead and describe who Anthony was at 9 or 10.
Uh, a brat. somebody who liked to cause trouble and liked to get in trouble and didn't like authority too much. We'll say that. And even when it got to the point where I wasn't trying to cause trouble, just with my little group of friends, I'd somehow get in trouble just because that's what was happening.
Yeah. And he, you know, I remember Anthony being in class and you were such a sweet kid and such a good kid. And but you were what Master Lappin calls a spinner, someone without a lot of focus, who when they first start martial arts, you know, spins in the back of the classroom and is looking for something to do, because you were so smart and you needed to be challenged and you're always looking for something. And how would you, okay, with what you just said about yourself then, how would you describe yourself now, like after you got your black belt and your second degree and after teaching and after everything that you went through in our program? How would you describe yourself when you graduated from our program and from high school and everything?
Mm, Again, like I said before, a lot more confident. Um, my perspective on a lot of things had changed. I tried to see myself in the eyes of my students and my parents, so that made me reflect on what I was doing, what I thought about doing, that type of stuff. That way, I, like I said earlier, could set an example for the students that I was teaching. Um, not all over the place.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you. So Mr. Anthony, do you have any advice for these guys on leadership? We were just talking about leadership. So do you have any advice for them about leadership?
You first step into a leadership position in any way, shape, or form. You cannot be, and it's human nature to be afraid to fail of anything, but don't let it stop you, because one of the biggest teachers in life is your mistakes and learning from your mistakes. And I learned that with teaching. One of the biggest things was I would do something wrong or I'll mess up on something. And when the time came again for that situation to arise, I knew what to do, or I knew a better way to handle that type of situation. So have the confidence to fail, because it's going to happen to everybody, no matter what.
Yeah. And we need to appreciate failure sometimes because of exactly the way that you worded it. You know, if you always do well and you never fail at anything, it's hard for you to learn anything, right? If you fail, you learn. In a tournament, if you don't win first place, if you spar somebody better than you learn how to be a better sparrer the next time. You learn that you need to start blocking your head, or you need to start throwing more punches or whatever. If you're always in a position where you're the best of the best and you don't have any opportunities to fail, you don't have any opportunities to learn and to grow. And the way you worded that's very true with everybody, with belt testings, with tournaments, with school, with anything at a job. If you get corrected, if somebody tries to teach you something, there are two ways to respond to it. You can either be mad at that person for correcting you and you can quit and give up and say, you know what, I'm not going to read anymore because you just told me that I was saying the A wrong, or whatever it is. Same thing at a job, like you said, teaching, you in karate class, you get corrected sometimes. It's not always fun. You don't always want to be corrected, but sometimes you do. And if you handle it the right way, you can learn so much from that. And you can be a better martial artist for it. So the way that you take criticism and correction and stuff like that has a huge effect on your outcome and who you become. I think you're a really good example of someone who, no matter what, some people, we get discouraged when we get corrected or told we're not doing something right, but you always had a really good attitude about it. And you always were like, thank you for criticism, thanked people for criticism, and did the next time that same situation arose, you made a different decision because of it. Okay. My last question for you. So we have about 45 students on here and their families, and most of them have made the commitment to black belt and are in our master's or leadership program. But we do have some families that are just getting started or that are considering making that commitment to black belt. So what would you tell a student or a parent who is considering making the commitment to black belt leadership training?
It makes a huge difference. It there's just so many things that you can benefit from it, that just one of those things, simply like the self-confidence, it can benefit you and your child so very much. It helped my grandparents a lot. They were older when they got me. I was a rambunctious little kid, and the studio really helped form who I am today. I was there, I think, like a little over 9 years or something like that. That's a place where I grew up, where I got my best of friends and had my role models. You will gain something out of it no matter what.
Good. Well, thank you, Anthony. Okay, you guys, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Anthony? Caleb's hand shot up super fast. All right, Mr. Caleb, what is your question for Mr. Anthony?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say hi and we miss you and we hope you come back to the studio.
Yeah. That goes for all of us. Yeah, next time you're in town, make sure you stop in. And he did actually a few months ago, it was a while ago, maybe 6 months ago, Mr. Anthony happened to be in town, stopped in and said hi. And I was like, get out and take class. And he did. And he had fun and everyone had fun training with him. So next time you're in, make sure you stop in and train with us again, okay?
Of course, of course.
All right. And Caleb just belt tested this past weekend for, was it for blue belt, Caleb? Yeah, he just tested for his blue belt and he did an awesome job on his test. He did awesome.
That is awesome.
All right, Mr. Benjamin. Benjamin, what's your question?
I just wanted to say hi to Mr. Anthony.
Hi.
I think you have quite a few people on here that definitely miss you. All right, Miss Cora and Miss Lane. Nope, you guys, I can't hear you. I think your audio might not be connected.
Uh-oh.
All right, I'll come back to you guys. If you get it fixed, let me know. Mr. Paul.
Unmute me. Hey, Mr. Anthony, are you doing the Marines close combat training, and how closely has the martial arts helped you with that? If you're doing it.
Sadly, no. Like I said, I was at boot camp for longer than expected, and the MOS school a heck of a lot longer than expected. So I've actually only been in the fleet about 2 months. And honestly, the majority of that has been just trying to step up to my job. In the past 2 weeks, I haven't even been able to do that. I've been on duty for the quarantine barracks, watching over the sick Marines and stuff like that. So they are very soon planning on trying to belt us up, and I'm excited for that because I was told Friday mornings we can come in early for sparring and stuff and grappling, and I love grappling, so I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Maybe you can come back and share some of that with us one day too.
Of course.
All right, Cora and Lane, it looks like you guys got it figured out.
I kind of wanted to just tell Mr. Anthony, say, hey, we miss you. Kind of the same thing Caleb did. Wish you would come back. Wish you were still with us here at karate, but you'll always be a part of the family.
That's
Thank you.
all right. Maz, did you have a question for Mr. Anthony?
I just wanted to say yesterday was my birthday and I got a metal detector.
Oh, happy birthday, Maz. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Did you have a fun birthday?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I'm very glad. Okay. Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Anthony? Miss Kathy.
I just wanted to say that I started my military career in the Seaburn field. And it's that was back when it was still called NBC. And it's a very interesting field to be in right now. Very relative or very meaningful right now. Back when I started about it, a lot of times people use the acronym Nobody Cares for NBC. Part of the reason why they changed it, I mean, they had to incorporate radiological into the field as well. But I was a division chemical officer before I retired a couple of years ago. So I know a lot about what training you're going through. hopefully, well, with this Mop 4 doesn't really, you know, do a lot of good, but hopefully you won't have to spend a lot of time in Mop 4 in your career, but I wish you all the best.
I've been
going
more
through.
the level A's, B's, and C's.
Yeah, well, things have changed a lot since I went through the training. You know, I spent a lot of time in charcoal suits that sweat all over you, and I went to a lot of military balls where I used to have to, you know, put stuff in the grog, change out of my dress blues into a mop suit, put the dry ice into the grog, change back into my blues. So good times, and I feel all of your pain going through the gas chambers and whatnot, but good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Miss Skylar has a question. Well, you just muted yourself, Skylar.
Oh, no.
Okay, go ahead.
How old were you when you got your black belt?
Oh. I think I was 14. I'm not 100% certain on that. I believe I was 14 though.
That's what I would probably guess, right around 14. All right, Mr. Ezekiel has a question.
How old were you when you got your second degree?
16. I was 16.
I just turned 9.
All right, Mackenzie has a question. Go ahead, Mackenzie, you're muted.
What's your definition of leadership?
What's my best what of leadership?
Your
What's
definition.
your definition?
She said, what's your definition of leadership?
Oh, okay. Broad term. I would say someone that can lead but also follow. If you are not able to follow somebody as well as lead, it dampers your leadership abilities. Because if you don't know when the right time for you to step down and let someone else maybe more qualified to lead, it really dampens the ability for yourself to be able to lead.
Yeah, that's a really strong point. We're not all experts in everything or the best in everything. And I know as an instructor, and every instructor on here, I'm sure can agree that you've taught a class, and most days when you teach a class, you learn something from your students. So I think that's a really strong part of leadership, is being able to learn from other people and to be open to learning from other people, and sometimes letting other people lead. Good. I think that, did anybody else have a question? And Master Lappin, it is set to you. You can unmute yourself. Kalia has a question though. Go ahead, Miss Kalia.
It's not really a question, but I remember one time me and my mom went to the store, and we saw him in the store, and we said hey and everything. And at the register we saw each other, and then we left, and when we went to go get in our car, he was parked right in front of us.
It's funny, Middleburg's a small town.
It is.
All right, Master Lappin, you are unmuted. Oh, nope, you just remuted yourself. Okay.
I unmuted now. Hi, Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, pretty good. It's so good to see you, and thank you so much for being here. I think you have a lot to offer, to share to some of our students, because I mean, you've just, you've been around, you've done a lot, you've seen a lot, and you've turned out very, very successful. So just want you to know we're really proud of you, and thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am, of course. Thank you.
All right, does anybody else have a question for Mr. Anthony? Miss Maya, and I think that's the last one.
Hi, Anthony. Hello, and I hope you're doing really well.
I am. Hello.
All right, anybody else?
Hi, Anthony. Just wanted to say it's Jasmine. I enjoyed teaching you, and
I do agree with everything you were saying. You were a very shy and very quiet child, and now you are an amazing, confident young man. I love seeing all of your posts on Facebook about everything you're doing.
Thank you. Hope you saw the kebabs.
All right, I think that was everything. I don't think I missed any. So let's all go ahead and unmute ourselves and say Kamapsumnida. Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for coming. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Anthony. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we see you soon.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. Everybody be safe, all right?
Bye, Anthony. All right. If anybody else has any stars to turn in, we can go ahead and do those now. So if anyone has character building sheets, go ahead and hold those up. Go ahead and hold up your character building sheets if you have some. Miss Destiny. Destiny, how many do you have?
11.
11. Wow. Which ones are they?
The self-discipline sheet, the black belt excellence sheet, character